Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Kirch's Corner. If you're watching this on YouTube, which I suggest that you should check that out. I am in person now. You can see me. There's a face to the voice that I have been, promoting all this time. I exist. I am not AI. So I'm glad to prove that to everybody. I don't think I had any AI allegations to begin with, but here we are. This is the new setup. As you can see, I set it up all down below. Again, if you're listening on podcast, feel free to hop over to YouTube, check it out. I've got everything down here. How about that? Got a little ticker on the bottom. And that's what we're here to talk about today. You see that right there? Week 1, Green Bay 27 versus Detroit 13. That's the main topic of the day. That's all I plan to cover. Before then, I want to give a shout out to these guys behind me. Right there, actually. I am, a devoted Wisconsin fan, but that is an autographed picture of Adrian Peterson. Game respects game. What can I say? Right below that, Aaron Rodgers, little picture there next to him. Signed Morgan Burnett picture. Got some icons in the background. Looking to add to it soon with more decor and everything. Make it more fitting. Let me know if you have any recommendations. So why not? Let's just get into it, right? The Packers won. 1-0. Right now, the best team in the NFC North. You can't argue that fact, right? 1-0. It's the only game that's been played in the NFC North, right? We've got Minnesota and Chicago tomorrow night. So obviously that will be very telling of the rest of the North. But right now the Packers are the best team. 27-13. It was really 27-6 if you don't count that garbage time touchdown. Which props on that touchdown. That was an amazing catch by Isaac Tesla. Wild name. Props to him. One-handed catch in the end zone. Sure, they can have that one in garbage time. I don't mind that. But what a game it was today. I think everybody that watched that game, there was a lot of hype around it. Home opener, how could you not be? At Lambeau, beautiful day, and such a big opponent. Jordan Love has not been good against the Lions, nor really any NFC team in the North, but picked up a huge win. The Packers were extremely dominant early on, which was a key to this game. You turn on the TV, they start playing, and you could just tell they were flying around with a new edge of confidence. Everybody on the team, you could notice it. It jumped off the screen at you, you could say, right? I personally was watching every single play, every single player, and just taking notes, mental notes, if you will, of just everything that they were doing. And that's what I noticed right away is that everybody was just flying, hitting hard, making maybe not the right plays, but they're making their plays with confidence. And I think that all comes back to Micah Parsons. I think when you added Micah Parsons to this team, it became such a big confidence boost for them where they could say, you know what, we are one of the best teams in the NFL. It's such a young team. That's what they need is that boost. They need that veteran presence. Even though, again, Parsons is a younger guy, but when you have somebody that good on your defense now, you play with a little more swagger. You know what I mean? That's what I was saying the entire game. And Micah was limited at that. Really not even on the field that much, but his presence is so much more beyond that. There's so much more beyond just his plays where he's rushing the quarterback, the confidence that he brings to the team, the space that he opens up for everybody else. It was so noticeable throughout the entire game, right? First half, really dominant. First quarter, scoring with ease. The offense seemed to be the best part, of the whole team. Everybody looked great. Outside of a few drops, Romeo Doubs showed out. Obviously, we didn't get a bulk of plays from the offense. They were barely on the field. I mean, Josh Jacobs struggled in the first half. I think that was a big focus for the Lions, stopping that run. I don't think there was a successful running back in the NFL today. Obviously, I'm recording this directly after the game ended. This is going up tomorrow. But, that's no surprise. No running back has really been successful. Low yardage all day long. But, yeah, I mean, leading receiver in catches was Jaden Reed with just 3, And yardage, Romeo Doubs had 68 yards on 2 catches. A 48-yard grab. I mean, they looked in sync today. Everybody was looking great. On offense, that was the dominant part right away, but also the defense was just suffocating. You can tell that not only do the Lions have completely different personnel calling their plays on both sides of the ball, but they completely made their game plan around that pass rush. It was so obvious to tell from the start of the game. But the defense, honestly, was probably the best part to watch for me. I was a little worried at times. Obviously, the Lions are going to roll. You're going to have that. They're a great team. I mean, that losing those coordinators is not ideal for them, but they're still the great team that they have always been. And for our defense to perform so well, for Green Bay's defense to just dominate was such a showing and evident of, the direction this team is going in. End of the day, Edgar and Cooper finished with 12 total tackles. Hold on. Javon Bullard looked great. At times, it was difficult for the DBs to make plays. It was a lot of just quick hitters. That was the entire game plan for the Lions. They rarely, took time to survey the field. The pressure was always on, and even if it wasn't, the game plan was just to get rid of the ball. The edge rushers were the best part. Rashawn Gary, 1.5 sack, a tackle for loss. He's back to his old self. And, even then at tackle, Devontae Wyatt had a big sack, to kind of end the game, kind of put it on ice. Lucas Van Ness started out the game really hot, ended up getting a half sack. I'll credit him, with a full sack on my accord, obviously not on the stat sheet. But I have been harping on that all offseason that this is the year that Lucas Van Ness has to actually break out. He's been really, lackluster. And it's his season that he can break out and do something. So I think he rose to the occasion completely. And then we're going to talk about the man himself, Micah Parsons. He had 1 sack. It was at the end of the game, but he had 1 sack, which was, honestly, I can only imagine what the stadium felt like for that sack. But it was noticeable that the focus on Micah Parsons, not only was he still bringing pressure with the game plan being focused on him, it freed up so much space for Rashawn Gary, for Lucas Van Ness. Everything about the rush became more sophisticated. It opened those doors for everybody else. That's why we're seeing the improvement on this defense. It's such a mental thing and kind of just a focus thing for the Lions and other teams that they're going to have to shift their entire game plan around that. And we saw that. Jared Goff, he only missed 8 passes. He completed 31, and he threw a pick as well. And for averages, he had 5.8 yards per completion. That's just evident of the entire game plan. They were just looking for quick passes. They didn't want to risk that pressure. On top of that, the run game was stifled. David Montgomery, 25 yards on 11 carries. Jahmyr Gibbs, 19 on 9 carries. Nobody could get anything all day. And I mean, the only standout was Sam Laporta. He had the longest reception. That was 32 yards. Other than that, the next highest, Amon-Ra St. Brown, barely existed. He had 19 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs was targeted 10 times. He had 10 completions, 31 yards. That was it. The defense was all over. And it was just such an impressive showing by the entire team. I was worried at times with the play calling, the momentum. I mean, with the offense going so quick, scoring so fast, it just kept the defense out there for so long. But honestly, it didn't really matter. I would like to see this offense, with more time on the field. Obviously, you can't complain about being on the field that little. They were so successful. It was hard to stay on the field for them. To stay on the field for them would be to essentially stop playing football. They were so dominant out there. And this is a huge confidence boost, I think, after only 1 win in the NFC North last year, dropping both against the Lions. You open up at home and you take down the division's top team. And you already tied, like I said, your division win total from last year. Right now, you're the top dog in the division. You just took down the Lions. You moved to the top spot. And depending on how J.G. McCarthy plays, depending how the Bears improve with Ben Johnson, it's going to be really interesting to see how this NFC North shapes up. I'm excited for that game tomorrow night to watch the Vikings and the Bears show down in prime time. And other than that, it's a quick turnaround for the Packers, which is worrying. There were some injury concerns. I know Aaron Brooks and Zach Tom on the offensive line had some injury concerns, but can only just hope for the best there. And quick turnaround on Thursday, taking on the Commanders. And when I made my predictions for this year, I went through every game. I don't know if you guys remember. If you listen, I'm sure you do. For the Lions game, this first one, I said I felt okay about it. I felt that if there was a game against the Lions that we could win, it would be this one. So obviously, that worked out great. Have another one against the Lions, but that's much later in the season after everything kind of develops. And, this game against the Commanders, I think, is more likely to win than not. That's what I thought before. And now that kind of just reinforced that fact. I made my season predictions too early, I guess, because adding Micah Parsons completely changed the entire narrative of the season. Everything about it was different after that. That was game changing. This era's Reggie White. You see that comparison everywhere. There's such similar people, in the sense that they're the only players ever to have 12 plus sacks throughout their first four seasons. On top of that, they were involved in two blockbuster moves to Green Bay. And right now, he's been the game changer. The entire team is completely different now. And that game against the Commanders will also be, a big test. It's not a division opponent, It's easier to say that, the Lions, it's also a division game. So it's easier to beat a division opponent. I'm not going to argue that fact. That's just a given. But taking on the Commanders this Thursday, quick turnaround, which is going to be difficult. But again, it's at home. It's quick turnaround for the Commanders, too. They took on the Giants. They won that game. So on Thursday, in prime time, Micah Parsons, Jordan Love kind of get to show off a little bit if they really have what it takes. It's one thing to win the first game of the season. It's another thing to continue that dominance. And if you ask me, the Commanders are probably the hardest game in this next 5-game stretch, where you take on, the Cowboys, Browns, Commanders, the Bengals. I think that's probably the hardest one. I used to think it was the Bengals. The Bengals did not look good today. They struggled with the Browns. And come on. I think we have a for sure win over the Browns. And thinking about that offensive line with the new pass rush, the defense, I think it's going to be too much for so many teams in the NFL nowadays. Now, when we play them, and the biggest part of this, the biggest message that I take away from today is not that it was such a dominant win. It's that it was such a dominant win, and the defense was amazing, and Micah Parsons was limited. He was not out there the entire game, more like less than half, I would say. I don't have the exact metrics. I'm just spitballing that. I have no idea. Maybe I'm wrong. But it's true that he was limited. He was not out there for every play, and he was a game changer. And once he's completely healthy and out there for an entire game, I'm scared for the rest of the league. I actually am. After this is my live reaction. You can say I'm being dramatic, but that was an insane showing for them. And I think they just put the league on notice. I think there were a lot of questions still with the Packers. The way they looked today, the confidence that they played with, the dominance that they had on defense and on offense, I think the entire league is taking notes on this. That was, probably the best win they've had in the past 2 years. And this might be the best defense they've had in for sure the last decade. This is really big stuff, and I hope it continues for the Packers. Let me know your thoughts. I'm going to post this on YouTube, on my regular podcasting services. This is all I'm covering for today. I can get back to maybe more later. In case you're wondering, the Brewers are still playing. It's end of the season. You can tune in if you want. But right now, I think all the focus in Wisconsin is on these Packers and in Green Bay. And it's going to stay that way for the rest of the week, too. Just a few days later, and we're going to be, Thursday Night Football against the Commanders and Jaden Daniels. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for tuning in. If you tuned in on YouTube, thank you for watching. This is new to me. I'm liking it. I'm liking the setup, the ticker down below, everything. Let me know your thoughts. If I should add anything behind me, I'm definitely gonna. Just got to take some time. But, of course, Thank you for watching, everybody. What a win. What a time to be a Packers fan. Hope you started your day with me either on YouTube or on podcasts, and just ride that energy of that win into Thursday. Ride it through your day. Above all, just have a great day, everybody. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on Kirch's Corner.